Hello, how you going? Happy Thursday to you. It is Thursday, isn't it? Yes, it is. Feels a bit like it's Wednesday because we had Monday off here in Australia, of course, for Easter Monday. Anyway, today we're going to talk about whether or not you should be buying an email list. Now, one of the things that is important as you go about building your business and marketing is being able to market to the people that are on your list and continue to nurture those people. But for some of you, you're probably frustrated going, I don't have anybody on my email list. And there's probably people that are singing that song saying, email your database, email your database. And you're going, there's no one on my database. Should I just buy a list? Well, I'm going to talk to you today why you shouldn't buy a list. In fact, I've got 7 reasons why you shouldn't. I'm going to give you some examples of what can go wrong and what you need to know about how to go about building a list, because you still need to build yourself a database, but buying an email list is a very dangerous game to play. And I'm going to talk a bit about why. So the first thing is that you're going to violate what's now called the GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulation. Now, it's a big thing in the EU. It sort of hasn't hit Australian shores yet, but it's going to. Of course, there's lots and lots of regulations already. We've seen people being fined a lot of money for continually spamming people. So you need to be very careful. If you buy an email list, you're actually breaking that GDPR rule. And what that rule entails is that you need to make sure that you are adhering to this rule, because most email marketers around the world have to legally adhere to this, where they allow recipients to be able to opt out of emails that they no longer want to be able to receive or want to receive. We definitely have that here in Australia, where you've got to have an unsubscribe link in your email marketing. You've also got to have contact details. And, some countries have a double opt-in requirement when people join a list. So if you're just buying a list and you're adding it to your email marketing software, there's a good chance that you're going to be breaking the law and you could end up with a huge fine. So that's probably the first thing that I would be thinking about. So if you or one of your team is suggesting it, then don't buy a list. Now, there's other ways to buy lists besides just buying them. You can actually get people on Fiverr to do a thing called web scraping. Now, if you haven't heard of Fiverr, Fiverr is a website where you can buy, it used to be for $5, you'd be able to buy something to get something done for $5. That's no longer the case, but it's still called fiverr.com. I just typed in data scrape emails, and the amount of services that came up was incredible. The people that say, so, I will provide any business list with email, phone address, and more in any country. I will find email lists, Excel, or web data entry, mining, scraping addresses. Here's another one. I will do email collection, web scraping, mining, and research. I will do website scraping, web data scraper, copy paste, email list, email extraction. I will do web. I like this one. I'll do web scrapping. Righto, you can do some scrapping for me. Anyway, so there's lots of people that will go out of their way. You'll pay them to collect emails for you, but the problem with those emails is they're not going to be very good. All right. Reason number 2 is a good email marketing program, whether you use MailChimp, HubSpot, Infusionsoft, Keep, Constant Contact, Aweber. A good reputable email marketing service is not going to let you send emails to a list that you've bought. And it's going to know that because there'll be too many people in that list that haven't opted in. And if they haven't opted in, then it's pretty obvious to the email service provider. And even if you have an old database that you haven't emailed for a long time, you can try uploading that. We had a client recently give us one of their an older database that they had in a email service provider software. We put it into their new HubSpot account, and HubSpot stopped the emails from being sent because there was too many hard bounces. So people that have left their jobs or moved location, but HubSpot got nervous and just stopped the send. So a really good that isn't a clean list. So you need to make sure that you're definitely not buying any old list, because then my third point is that good email lists are not going to be for sale, right? So you're never going to find a good email list for sale. Never. Absolutely never. Now, you might be able to do a joint venture swap with somebody, but they should not give you their email list. They should email their list on your behalf. And you might pay for that, but that's the only way you should be ever paying to access somebody's email database. A lot of magazines do that these days because they've turned to online. You could go to a business magazine or a magazine that's in your niche, and say, would you allow me to send an email out to your subscribers, and you'd pay them. So that's different to buying the actual list yourself. Okay, so good email addresses aren't for sale. And unfortunately, a lot of lists that are sold have been scraped, so they've been scraped and they're getting sold over and over and over and over again. And what happens is that, these email service providers learn that there's this list getting around, there's all this dud data. And if you find yourself, I'm definitely one of the people, I get emails all the time that are unsolicited marketing emails. I probably unsubscribe from 5 to 10 per day from one of my email accounts. And I don't even know about my other one because my virtual assistant opens those emails. So I know that she also has a lot, but that's why I've got a virtual assistant going through that inbox because so many spam. Now, the reason for that is because my email address is on the internet. As soon as your email address is on the internet, people can scrape it. So, just be very careful about where you put your email address. The fourth reason why I think it's a really bad idea is that people on a purchased or rented list aren't going to know who you are. And, people buy from people they like, they know, they like, and they trust. And so, by building your own email list through, opt-ins, through, things like this event, for example, through Facebook groups, through your website, through maybe live events where you collect people's business cards and you say, would you mind if I send you some information? By building your email address, your email database that way, you're going to get a much better quality list together of people that know who you are. And so when you just do this with on my phone because it deletes them. I love that feature on the old iPhone inbox. I only check my emails a couple of times, but there's one there right now. Bang, gone, delete. I just have to swipe left and it goes. So if it's not from someone I know, that's typically what I do. And then there'll be times when I just sit down and go, okay, I've got to unsubscribe from all of these things today because, I'll get so many. And it's a shame really because I'm sure some of it's good information, but I don't know who they are. So, and they're sending me information without being, without any permission. So, people on purchase, rent, or rented lists, they're not going to know who you are. So, not always a great idea. Better to create a joint venture with somebody or find somebody in your target market and ask them to email their list, offering something from you to their database and introducing you and say, look, Ben is my friend. I've known him for many years. I love what it is he does. And I thought I would let you know more about his services. He's got this free workshop coming up. He's got this free download that I think you'd find really handy. And then that trust is going to transfer. So that's a better way to do it. All right. Number 5. Is you'll actually harm your email deliverability. So what happens is you've got what's called an IP address, which is Internet Protocol. Bit technical, but forget that for a moment. Your IP address sort of is like your house address in real time. The IP address is the same thing on the internet. And so it could be an organizational IP address. It could be your IP address. It could be a home IP address. Depends where you're sending the emails from. But there's companies that are dedicated to finding spam emails. Now, back in the day before email was a thing, we used to rent lists. We used to rent telemarketing lists. They used to put, they'd plant what they called honeypots inside those lists. And they were designed so that if you did something incorrectly with that list, that the list provider would know because they had this thing planted within the list. You'd never know who it was, but it was just a fake name and number. The same thing applies these days in email lists. What happens is there's organizations that are dedicated to combating spam email, and they set up these things called honeypots, which is basically a planted email address that when it's harvested and emailed, it will have a hard bounce, and by having the hard bounce tells the internet service provider and the email service provider that you're sending mail to a hard bounce. And so they'll put quite a few of those sometimes in the lists because then when you shoot your email out, it will actually bounce back and you're going to harm your IP address. Now, this is one of the reasons why email service providers are so careful about what they let you send because you can actually affect everybody else's email campaigns. Now, it's changing. So it's not so much the case, but there are some email service providers that have a shared IP. And so you might follow all the rules, but somebody else who uses that program might not. And sometimes that's also a reason not to go with the cheapest email service provider you can find, because they're probably going to cut some corners, and there's probably going to be a chance that people that are using that service may not care as much as you do about your reputation. So be very careful what you sign up for. Use something reputable like a HubSpot, an Infusionsoft Keep, Constant Contact, Aweber, etc., and you'll get better results. All right. The sixth reason I don't think it's a good idea is you're just going to annoy people. As I mentioned before, I get a lot of emails that are unsolicited. I really just don't like it at all. Nobody does. I'm happy to get emails from you if I opt into something. And in fact, I typically will set up a separate folder. I have a separate email account that I use for subscribing, which I suggest you do as well if you want to save yourself a stack of time. And that way, those subscriptions will go into that email box. I then set up folders for each of the person's emails, and it does actually amaze me how many times some people will email in a month. I've got one that I'm watching at the moment. He has sent 43 emails in the last 30 days. 43, because I haven't bought anything, So he's just trying everything they possibly, and it's all automated. So you don't want to be annoying. Don't be annoying. And if you're emailing a rented database, then you're going to be annoying. Like, there's going to be a lot of people in there that are going to complain about you. And part of what happens is when you unsubscribe, a lot of email service providers allow you to pick why you're unsubscribing, and you can pick it's spam. I did not opt in for this list, and that'll actually red flag it. So if they get too many of those, it will notify that person is a spammer, and that'll damage their IP reputation. Which leads me to number 7, which is that your email service provider can penalize you, definitely. So email service providers like Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, Aweber, they don't want to be associated with people that are spammy. Like I mentioned HubSpot before, they'll put a stop on your emails getting sent out. But I know with Aweber, if you do the wrong thing, I think more than a couple of times, you're out. They'll just ban you and close your whole account down. They'll just totally close your account so you can't even send another email. So, you've got to think about, what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve. And whilst it seems like the easy way to build your email list by purchasing emails, it's actually going to take you longer to get results, because you're going to waste a stack of time on something that's not going to work. And then even the emails that you add into your database that are good, legit, opted in people that are interested in what you've got, you're going to have a harder time reaching them, because internet service providers and email service providers aren't going to trust your IP address. So just keep that in mind. Now, this is another reason why you've got to learn to, wash your data or clean your database on a regular basis. Now, I do have a free resource for you that I wanted to tell you about. You can go to senderscore.org. And senderscore.org will allow you to get a report on your sender score. You do need your IP address to be able to do it. So if you're not sure how to do that, then just look up how to get my IP address. But you'll put your IP address in, put in your details. Of course, it's a lead magnet for them, for that company. But you'll be able to get your sender score for free, which is a really handy thing to do. And you'll just be able to see how you're currently tracking compared to what you thought. Maybe you're not doing as well as you thought you were. So that's senderscore.org. All right, so there you go. Hopefully you found this helpful. I really do hope that you're not going to buy an email list. You probably weren't anyway. But this is just, I want to squash any thought, any inkling of thinking that you might buy an email list, because the services are available. As I said, I looked it up on Fiverr. There's plenty of people that are willing to scrape email addresses off of the internet for you, and you can get them for, These one 2,500. This one I'm looking at here, 2,500. High quality business name, address, phone number, email, website, map link, and more. $70 Australian. Incredible when you think about it, but you get what you pay for. So do not buy an email scraped list or an email database anywhere. Pretty simple. Thanks again for joining me. I've been Ben Futuro. You've been absolutely fantastic. And look, if you need any help with your digital marketing whatsoever, we'll pop a little link down below in the chat box where you can book a discovery call to have a chat with myself about how we might be able to help you get better results from your digital marketing. Until next time, take care.